My name is Randy Mason, and I'm the Managing Partner at Commercial Realty Specialists. And today I'd like to give you another idea to share. Today's idea to share has to do with a conversation I had with a client of mine who basically asked, "Hey Randy, how do I choose a commercial real estate agent?" What you want to do is you want to ask the broker some questions. Specifically, what side of the transaction do they represent? Do they represent the landlord side or the tenant side? It's very important to have one broker representing your side of the transaction. If you can imagine, you really can't become a fiduciary for somebody if you're representing two masters. So the bottom line is, work with one broker who says, I'm going to work only with the landlord, or I only represent the tenant. You want to make sure you ask the broker, who do they have a fiduciary responsibility to? The question really has to do with, they need to make sure that they represent one side of the transaction, because you really can't represent two masters in any transaction. Another question you might want to ask them if you're going to be a buyer is, do they understand financing and the various types of financing, such as do they understand SBA financing, such as the 504 or the 7A program? Do they understand conventional financing? That's important to ask your broker as well. Another question you want to ask the broker is, what type of specialty or discipline do they have with the real estate practice? Is it office? Is it industrial? Is it retail? Is it manufacturing? It's important to make sure that your real estate broker understands exactly what you're looking to accomplish. If you're an office user, you may not want to use a broker that specializes in retail. It doesn't mean that that broker could not do that transaction, but it's just a question to ask and something to understand when you're interviewing. Another question to ask is, what resources does that broker have? How many designations do they have? Designations are important only for the fact that it shows that that broker has actually taken the time and energy and effort to get certain designations. The CCIM designation, as an example, is considered the PhD in commercial real estate. It's not an absolute necessity to have, but it's an excellent designation to obtain. Also, the SIOR designation is an important designation to achieve. What type of financial programs does your broker use? Do they understand the actual nuances of a transaction and the pros and the cons and the net present value of various lease transactions or purchase opportunities? Another question to ask your broker is, what types of personal and business contacts does that individual possess? If you need appraisers, can they help you with appraisers? If you need bankers, can they help you with bankers? Or attorneys, or roofers, or any other type of real estate related individual? And if they don't have personal relationships, do they have a network large enough that they're able to get referrals from some of their other friends within the business community? You also have to understand asking a broker specific questions is important, because if that broker is asking you, the client, certain questions, making sure that they understand your needs, because frankly, every transaction is different, every transaction is unique. So you want to make sure that the broker that you're interviewing is asking you a lot of questions and understanding about your business and what's important to you. Another important question, but frankly isn't very much real estate related, has to do with what philanthropic organizations does your commercial real estate representative belong to? The reason I think that's important is because that shows character about somebody. Do they donate blood? Not a lot of people like needles, and if they're willing to go through, I don't think anybody likes needles actually, but if they're willing to go through that step of donating blood, I think that's a pretty an unselfish act. Do they donate their time to any organizations? Do they help children? Do they help the homeless? Not necessarily totally important in a transaction, but it gives you an idea of the character of the individual. Also, understanding, does your real estate broker work for money, as in that's the bottom line, or are they working for, let's just call it letters of recommendation, or LinkedIn recommendations, or referrals to other clients? I believe that's going to put an individual above the bar, as opposed to, hey, I want to make sure that this is a profitable transaction. Not all transactions are profitable, unfortunately, but if you're looking out for, frankly, the long-term benefits and the idea of helping people, that's important. I think it comes from the idea of the philosophy of pay it forward mentality. Last but not least, I think obviously the most important question you need to figure out in your own heart is, do I trust the individual? And talk to some of your friends or some of their past clients that they've worked with. Get a comfort level as to, hey, what's this individual like? Do they complete the transaction and then leave, or do they follow up on a consistent basis just to make sure you're okay and things haven't changed a lot in your world? Those are just some of my ideas of how to select a commercial real estate broker. Good luck, and that was my idea to share.